Hello. Let's take a look at how blockchain might be applied to one use case with multiple participants to handle asset transfers and disposal. For this demo scenario, we will start by describing what the assets are that we are transferring, who the participants are in the business network, and then go over how the current business process works today. Then we'll shift to how blockchain could be used to handle the asset transfers, focusing on the roles of the participants, the assets, and the transfers themselves, as well as showing how blockchain could be useful in this scenario. The asset we will be transferring is cars. This asset type defines the typical participants and characteristics of how the assets are transferred. For the sake of illustration, some of the industry processes have been adapted and simplified. However, this is just a specific example, and of course the approach of using blockchain to handle asset transfers could be extended to a wide range of assets, from physical items to commodities and other instruments. Let's consider a business network for car leasing. Each participant has tasks ranging from creation, transfer, to disposal. The regulator creates the asset record and requires visibility to the asset throughout the life cycle. The manufacturer updates the asset record with specifics of a particular car. Many parties are involved in this life cycle with the transfer of the asset, following agreed-upon business rules. For example, the manufacturer does not directly transfer a car to a lessee, but rather it transfers it to a dealership, who in turn transfers it to a leasing company. And to end the life cycle of a car, the scrap merchant creates an official disposal record. Here's how the process works today. All parties, including the regulator, keep some type of in-house ledger for the assets. Synchronization of transactions across these different ledgers is slow and prone to error. This can lead to potential confusion over who owns which asset at what time. With blockchain, all participants utilize a shared and permission ledger to track asset ownership. Transactions against the ledger are only permitted if they adhere to the agreed-upon business rules of the market. Each transaction is committed through a consensus process, ensuring integrity and consistency of the ledger. Security and privacy services ensure that access to the data in the network is properly granted to the different roles and members, while also guaranteeing the provenance of each change to the ledger. Here is one approach to representing a car using blockchain technology. The demo scenario uses a smart contract with the market's agreed-upon business rules to initially create a vehicle template representing a car. These rules govern the definition of a vehicle. The regulator can create an instance of the car as a vehicle template on the blockchain, and then the manufacturer completes the asset by adding, say, the VIN, the model, and the registration information. Once the asset has this information, the smart contract could permit asset transfers, but could prevent asset transfers if any items were missing. Now that we have a car committed to the blockchain, here's how it can be transferred. For example, a transfer from a manufacturer to a dealership. In our initial state, vehicle A is shown in the vehicle inventory of the manufacturer. Next, the manufacturer initiates a transfer to the dealership using the manufacturer's application. To process and complete the transaction, the business rules in the smart contract must be met and consensus reached in the network. Now, Vehicle A is transferred and the ledger is committed with blocks that show the current owner is now the dealership. Let's have a look at our sample application to show how this transfer will work. You'll get a chance to do this in the lab in a moment. Here I have the view of the manufacturer's listing of vehicles. I'm going to pick this Alfa Romeo up here at the top, and then I'll go over to select the dealership that I want to transfer the vehicle to. We'll choose the Beach Whale Group, and then initiate the transfer by clicking on Transfer Assets. You'll see in this demo that each time an asset is transferred, there's a confirmation list of the activities. Now I'm going to move over to the view from the dealership. This is the dealership view, and I'm over here in the Beach Whale Group. I'm going to look at the vehicles that I have in my inventory. And there it is. There's the Alfa Romeo that's been transferred from the manufacturer. Now, as a dealer, I can continue on with my business process and do further transfers out to the lease company. Looking at the overall view of the scenario, we can see that there are a series of similar transactions between the participant. Each transfer is handled by the same smart contract transfer code and follows the agreed upon business rules in the network for transaction validity. The car leasing sample application scenario for the lab includes multiple participants of each rule type so that you can experiment and play around with different transfer life cycles for different vehicles. Let's look at how blockchain is adding value to this scenario. The blockchain contains transactions in the network listed in chronological order. The sample blockchain shown here shows a series of cars being created and going through an initial state of being customized by the manufacturer, and then they become a solid color. And then there's a few more transfers that are shown on the chain. Let's go back to the application and look at it again. Now, at this point, the vehicle that we started with, the transferring from the manufacturer into the dealership, has gone through its full life cycle. And let's see what the regulator can see about the history and provenance of the asset. So here are all of the assets and transfers across the blockchain network. I can see the entire blockchain list. I'm going to focus in here. The first vehicle transfer we did was the Alfa Romeo right here from the manufacturer, and this is our vehicle ID. Let's paste in here this particular vehicle ID so we can see the history of the entire asset. Okay. And here we can see the history of the entire asset, where it goes from its initial creation record by the regulator all the way through the process of transfer to the manufacturer, update by manufacturer, transfer to dealership, transfer to leasing company, transfer to leasee, transfer to scrap merchant, and the eventual scrapping of the vehicle. Before we move on to the hands-on lab, let's have a quick summary of the benefits of blockchain in this example scenario. Firstly, it can help prevent fraud through consensus. Everybody agrees about the state of the asset, the state is immutable, and it is final. And there's clear provenance for each asset for its entire lifetime through the blockchain. There's flexibility here. IBM Blockchain uses smart contracts that can model any asset type. Finally, we can see how the blockchain exposes a shared ledger available to all market participants, simplifying their recording and asset management. And let's move on and let you get some experience with the hands-on lab of the same application.